Hello, my most amazing artists. Today we're going to begin our dot paintings similar to the dots we saw by Omar Chacon with circles, inside circles, inside circles. So at your table you have a messy mat, and on that messy mat we're going to put our white paper, and on your white paper there is a circle white dot in the center. It's a little sticker in the middle. You have to look for it because it is the same color as your paper, so it might be a little difficult to see. But that's going to be the front, and on the back you need to remember to write your name. Otherwise we won't know whose is whose. So once you've got your name on there, we're going to look for this white dot sticker, and we're going to paint our first circle around that sticker and touching that sticker. Now for your paints, you have two sets of colors in your tray. You have warm colors, which includes our reds, orange, yellows, and a little bit of our pinks. But this magenta, can either go on the warm side or it can also go on our cool side. Cool colors are blues, greens, and purple. So this is kind of a purpley pink. It can kind of go either way. When you are washing off your colors, your water cups tend to get really messy, and I think this might be a way to kind of keep the colors looking a little cleaner if we wash off all of our warm colors on one side and all of our cool colors on the other. Then hopefully our water isn't going to turn a gross brown, and it'll keep your colors on your paper looking nice and clean. So I'm going to begin with any color I want. You don't have to use the color I use. You can use whatever color you want. You're going to hold your brush on this squishy part of the brush right here, and you're going to be careful when you dip it into the paint that you are not getting the paint on the danger zone. We don't want to get it in the danger zone because when we get paint here, we're in danger of wasting it. There is no way the paint that ends up on the metal part here is going to end up on your paper. You only want the paint on the hairs of your brush. So let me grab my first color. I think I'm going to take some of this red. I'm going to give it a dip. Only the hairs of my brush are getting the paint like this, and I can wipe it a little bit if I have too much. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to touch this dot sticker in the center, right along the edge. And I'm going to lay my hairs of my brush down and drag it around the edge of that center sticker. Now if my paint starts to look like that, I might need to flip my brush over to the other side and fix it up. I'm going to grab some of the paint that's here, and I'm going to drag it around. And I can use the other side of my brush. Now if I don't have enough paint, I got to give my brush a dip again into the paint and add a little bit more paint on there. And by laying the hairs down on the paper like this, I'm getting a nice even circle all the way around. Looks pretty good. Now I'm ready to switch colors. When I'm ready to switch colors, I need to rinse off my brush. So red is a warm color. I'm going to bounce my brush in here, and I'm not just swirling and sloshing it around. That's how we spill water everywhere. I am bouncing my brush on the bottom of the cup like that, and you can see all that color coming out of my brush. Once I'm done getting all the color out of my brush is going to still be very wet. So I'm going to grab my towel. I'm going to lay my brush down in my towel and make a brush sandwich. I'm going to wrap the towel around, and I'm going to squeeze out the extra water from my brush like that. So wrap it around, squeeze out the extra water. And I shouldn't have a ton of paint on my towel because I've already got the paint washed off in the water. All right, let's go back and add my next color. You can do any color you like. I think I'm going to add some of this blue here, so I'm giving my brush a dip only on the hairs of the brush. I'm holding my brush in the center like this, and this time when I add my circle, I need to make sure it is touching my red. I don't want to have space between my colors. I want the colors to touch each other. I'm going to flip my brush over and use the other side. And notice how I'm laying the hairs down on the paper So I'm getting a nice even circle all the way around. I have some white spots. I'm going to give my brush a little dip, wipe on the edge a little, and I'm going to fix up those white spots. You might end up with a little bit of mixing where your colors touch. That's okay. If your brush gets really dirty though, you do need to wash it before you stick it back in your color, because I don't want a bunch of red getting into my blue. I'm ready to change colors again. I'm not going to rinse this brush off in my warm side. I'm going to rinse this brush off in my cool side. So I got to bounce, bounce, bounce over here. I'm going to get all that blue off my brush. And once your brush comes out of the water, we're not tapping it because that splatters water everywhere. We always want to wipe it. Give it a dip, wipe on the lip. I'm going to grab my paper towel again, and I'm going to make a brush sandwich. So poke my brush in, make a sandwich, pull all the extra water out of my brush. You don't want a really watery brush dipping into your colors. Otherwise, your colors are going to look really watery and not bright and vibrant. So I'm going to do another, give it a dip, wipe on the lip. I've got it on the hairs of my brush only. And I'm going to add my next ring so that it is touching my blue. You don't want to have a bunch of white space between your circles. I've got a little bit of that blue in there. If it's really got on my brush, I can kind of wipe some of that blue off on my messy mat. And where that mixed, that's okay. I'm not so concerned about that. I'm going to then take my brush again and I'm going to rinse it in the warm side. So I can see that yellow is included there. I'm going to bounce, bounce, bounce. And again, I need my paper towel. Put it in, brush sandwich, pull out the extra water like that. And you're going to keep going. Ring after ring of color till you get near the edge. Remember, if a color starts to look a little fuzzy or the edges are fuzzy, it's because you don't have enough paint on your brush. So when you have enough paint, you get nice smooth edges and no fuzzy marks like that. If you pick up colors from the ring before, you can just brush them off on your messy mat before you re-dip in the color you're using. As you get further along, some of your marks might end up going near the edge, and that's why it's important you have the messy mat there so that it catches the paint that goes off the edge of your paper, and that paint doesn't end up on the table. So I am almost towards the end. I'm going to finish this green ring. Once I can't fit any more circles on my paper like this one, I'm going to have some white corners. And in that white corner, you're just going to fill in one color. And that color should be the same in every corner of your artwork. So if I choose to use blue, I'm going to use blue in all 4 corners, just like this. I'm going to give it a dip. And I'm going to fill in the corner. Again, make sure you're on the messy mat so that we don't end up with paint all over the table. By the time you're done, there should be no white spots left. The very last thing we need to do to finish these up is add a color in the center here. And since I already have blue on my brush, I'm going to use that. I'm going to give it a dip, wipe on the lip, and I'm going to cover up that white sticker with a color. So I'm just laying my brush down, spinning it around, and adding my last color. I'm going to wash off my brush one last time, and you can see in my water cup here, my colors are still not brown because I kept the warms on one side and the cools on the other. So I'm gonna wash off my brush, and don't forget to use your towel every time to make a little brush sandwich. Squeeze out the extra water like that. If your brush still looks dirty, give it another bath. You've got to bounce it in the bottom of the cup, wipe it on the side, don't tap it, and then squeeze out the extra water, making sure your brush is clean for the next student that's going to use it. Can't wait to see your finished dots.